Hi, everybody. This is Andrew Marshall from the United Fresh Produce Association, here today with Dale Hayes from School Meals That Rock. So excited to have Dale with us today for a brief interview to talk a little bit about all the work that she does for the school nutrition community, and also to talk a little bit about everything that's happening right now with schools given the current coronavirus COVID-19 issues, and how school nutrition directors are really just doing a tremendous job to step up and really be first responders and nutrition leaders in their community to make sure people have access to food. As I mentioned, Dale is a school nutrition leader, an advocate, a collaborator, somebody that's been in this field for a very long time, and who I've had the pleasure to work with over the last couple of years, and who I really thought was important for us to share with the United Fresh community to showcase how we have worked together to engage school nutrition directors around fresh fruits and vegetables, but really just kind of as a way to ensure that as we work together, we're all on the same page and can understand each other's shared realities. So, Dale, if you wouldn't mind, can you give our listeners a sense of who you are, what you've done within school nutrition over these number of years?
Thank you so much, Andrew, for inviting me to talk about it. It is the topic about which I am most passionate. And I have loved fresh fruits and vegetables from my very early childhood, growing up on my grandfather's farm near Visalia, California, where he raised tomatoes and watermelons. So my love of fresh fruits and vegetables is deep. And I have taken that into my work with schools over the past 20 years. I am a registered dietitian. I have worked in every state in this country, mostly doing training and technical assistance for school districts, helping them learn how to better tell their story. There have been wonderful things going on in schools for many years, but they haven't been talking about it enough. So my life's work has been as a cheerleader for the excellent work they've been doing, but also to help them learn to tell their own story better.
Well, thank you for that. And I do appreciate, I should mention to our audience that Dale was a speaker at our recent Fresh Start conference and also has attended the United Fresh convention in previous years, both to speak to our school nutrition directors that are part of our school forum every year, and also to connect with produce companies to share, again, a lot of the work that she's doing and that we are doing to connect schools with the produce industry. Today's conversation, I really wanted to talk a little bit about the School Meals That Rock platform that you have established within the school nutrition community. And if you could share a little bit with our audience about what that is and kind of how you're working to kind of elevate school nutrition and bring their stories
out. More than a decade ago, I just started a Facebook page like many other people were doing, sort of not knowing where it might go, and I called it School Meals That Rock. You may have remembered that some people, no need to point fingers or name names, but some people were posting pictures of bad school meals online. And I thought, well, if they can do that, I can post pictures of some of the things that I know are going on around the country that are wonderful. So that's really what I started with, was just quite simply a Facebook page that started to tell that story about School Meals That Rock.
And it's really become so much more than that, really, over those years. You've got the Facebook page, but you're also using other social media channels to get your story out there. And, why did you begin? I mean, you talked a little bit about why you started this and when you started it, but who is engaging on the School Meals That Rock page, and kind of who do we seeing interacting as part of this? I know that from the standpoint of an industry partner and school nutrition advocate, I have found that platform to be an excellent way to find out what's happening in school nutrition.
Well, thank you, Andrew. Yes, and we have School Meals That Rock on Twitter, and we have School Meals That Rock on Instagram, and also on Pinterest. I have to admit, I haven't been keeping up with the Pinterest page. I can only do so much, especially under the current circumstances. But our most active platform right now is actually a Facebook group, and that Facebook group is called Tips for School Meals That Rock. So anybody can find it on Facebook. Just type in Tips for School Meals That Rock. And now we are adding, over the past week, maybe 100 members a day. So we're up over 12,000 members who follow that group. And those members are, a lot of them are school folks, of course. They may be directors, they may be state agency people, but many of them are the on the ground folks, the place where the tray meets the student, or now where the school bus meets the student to deliver meals. So it's a very wide range of people who belong to that group. And in fact, anybody can belong. Over the past couple of years, we have really encouraged industry members to belong. Industry members who might work for a branded product, but also folks like your commodity group folks from the produce industry, but also anybody from United Fresh who either is a grower, a producer, a packer. Anybody is eligible to join. We do ask a few things. First of all, how you join is you just go to the group, you type in your name where it says you'd like to join. And really, we have a few simple rules. No negatives, no ranting, although I have to admit we've allowed a little bit of ranting during the COVID-19, just as a place for people to get things off their chest. But really, in terms of industry, the only thing we would ask is that it's not a place to try to do any sales or to tell people your product is better than anybody else's.
So certainly a collaborative environment, from what I've seen, for folks who may be listening to this interview for the first time and haven't had the opportunity to log in and look at that Facebook page, what are some of the things that they might see? Granted, this past couple weeks they may see some things that are not typical of what's been posted, but I think they would definitely see that the value that brings to the school nutrition community and folks who are looking to continue to support schools as they're trying to feed healthy kids healthier foods.
Absolutely, Andrew. I think that what you'll see there is incredibly inspiring and also really gets to the collaborative nature of the group. I think the reason why we have so many engaged members, so, it's nice to say 12,000 people, but how engaged are those? And we've seen a real uptick in engagement since this whole crisis started. And one of the favorite things that people do is post a question. How do you do blank? How can I find a resource that does X? So not only is there an opportunity for other members to answer the question on that post, but we also have a files section. So we encourage people, if they have, say in this new environment, a good way to a checklist to keep track of things, or a menu for what do you deliver when you're delivering all your meals by buses. We encourage people to post those files there. So it's both a place to ask questions, but then a place to share resources.
Great. And speaking of that, thank you, Dale, for the collaboration this past week with everything that's going on with the coronavirus issues. We are in a situation right now where a lot of our produce distributor members are really struggling in terms of loss of their restaurant customers, their hotel customers, convention customers, school customers with school closures. And a lot of them have been looking for an outlet for some of the produce that they've got in their warehouses. And I just want to thank you for the collaboration this week with United Fresh to get out the word for school nutrition directors and their procurement teams to contact their produce distributors and see what options might be available to help get some of the product to families and children in need.
Thank you for reaching out and allowing us to do that, Andrew. It really felt like a service to be able to share that information. And I think in many cases, the directors were so busy coping with the day-to-day. I mean, what you have to understand is that in some districts, they're serving 30,000 meals a day, curbside or off of buses or trucks or vans, whatever they've got. I mean, enormous millions of children are receiving meals this way during the crisis because many of those children do not have another way to get food. So when you reached out and said that was an opportunity, I think for many of our members, it was like, oh my gosh, I forgot to call my produce distributor. And some people have had some immediate response, both for items that they could purchase and items that might be available for donation. So that was a wonderful thing to be able to do. And right now, in this crisis where everybody is looking for ways to do what they can, that felt like a really good way for me to help out the members of United Fresh, who I support so strongly. And I want to say a couple of things about that in relationship to the crisis. Number one, it's really obvious that this isn't going to end tomorrow, that we are going to be serving students in some way for many weeks to come. It may vary across the country, but it is an opportunity for your members to establish relationships, to because those crops are going to keep growing and they're going to harvest them and figure out ways, the best ways possible to get those meals to children. And I want to add here, you know, I think a lot of people, when they think about school meals, they think free and reduced price meals, and that's absolutely true. We are focused on those children who may not regularly get food in other ways. But, you know, a lot of families now are quarantined and isolated who might never have eaten school lunch before. They might be isolated because someone in their household has been exposed. Someone in their household is waiting for a test. And those are the people who have written notes to the school nutrition world just saying, we are so incredibly grateful for the fact that we can have a meal. So Andrew, honestly, my greatest hope for this pandemic is that afterwards people will realize how incredibly important school nutrition folks are to our country. They really stepped up in a way that that very few people, besides those incredible heroes in the medical field, have. I put school lunch ladies and gentlemen right behind them.
Absolutely. First responders. I think many of them may have even been surprised that they were considered first responders or quote unquote, the essential employees during this time. But they really are a critical step to keep the supply chain moving, to ensure that the people in their community have access to food, especially the ones that you mentioned that may be unable to get it or get outside in other situations, whether that's because they have people living with people who are older or immunocompromised or what have you. But the school nutrition community has really been a group that stepped up tremendously here. And you know, I think that the more that everybody who works with school nutrition can spread that message and can spread the message that you know, they really are part of the food service industry and are part of that essential supply chain that's getting food to people. I think that that's so important.
And they are incredibly grateful to all the folks in that supply chain. I mean, not only the farmers and growers, but I have seen so many thank yous on Tips for School Meals That Rock to truck drivers, to the people who actually bring the food to schools. You know, and I've seen, again, a couple of industry partners who've lent refrigerated trucks to schools to store food in during this time, because one of the things is that schools generally don't have a lot of storage space. In other words, you know, they're a quick in and then a quick out kind of operation, and they may not have the refrigeration space they need to store for the kind of distribution they're actually beginning to do. And I've seen, not just in one, but in several communities, a truck from a distributor or from a company sitting outside a school with food to be distributed in it. So I think the gratitude goes both ways. I think that school nutrition people are used to people complaining about everything they do, and not living up to certain standards. And now they're realizing that people really do rely on them and are relying on them. The other thing that's being done, which is sort of my dream, is that if you're going to be distributing food to children in a community, it's also a great way to distribute food to seniors, to entire families. So now in several areas, they're combining a distribution at a school with boxes from a food bank, so that people are not required to go to 2 or 3 different places to access food, but they're able to access it at a single point. And the schools, because they're so good about food safety and they have embraced all the precautions associated with this, with COVID-19, they're the perfect place to do it, in my mind.
Absolutely. And again, I guess gets back to just thanking you for collaborating with us to post that message on the School Meals That Rock page, because we're hearing stories now of school nutrition directors that saw that message, called up their produce distributor, and now are thinking about, oh, wow, now we can give families some extra produce with the meals that they're picking up so they can take that home. And this gets to several issues, whether it's a food waste issue or a nutrition issue, or really just kind of keeping the supply chain moving and really strengthening those relationships. It's hard to say, but oftentimes during crisis, this is the time when people are coming together to work together and find solutions, make new partnerships. But I think that's certainly happening right now.
It is definitely happening. And what I would suggest is that your members can join Tips for School Meals That Rock. They just go to that Facebook page. We have an approval process, but trust me, especially these days, it's very quick and easy to get approved. And then what I would say for your members is to just scroll through. I mean, see what's been posted, get an idea of what people are doing, take a look at the meals. And then they will be in a better position to have those conversations with their local districts. Also, they will be able to see where people are posting from. And we don't encourage people to, again, we've had a very firm rule about sales. But I think if you're on one of your members is on Tips for School Meals That Rock, and they see a school district in X state, and they see that they're serving, 75,000 lunches a day, I would feel perfectly comfortable with them looking up that director's name and calling them up and say, let's have a conversation about what we have in terms of produce and how we can work together. So in times of crises, people do come together. And what I would hope is that, I know that you, Andrew, and United Fresh have worked really hard to create relationships even before this, but now in the future that there would be even better relationships between schools and your members in terms of getting more fresh fruits and vegetables into America's children.
Well, thank you so much for that, Dale. That really does mean a lot. This collaboration and our kind of working relationship over the years has really been fantastic, and something that we and I personally value. Before we let you go, I'm kind of looking over your shoulder there, and I see a beautiful quilt that has a variety of produce items on it. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about that. What can you tell me about that, Dale?
Well, the first thing is, it's the only thing I've ever won in a raffle before. I bought a raffle ticket at the Montana Dietetic Association meeting. I live in Montana. Many years ago, a group of dietitians got together and made this incredible quilt, and it has been on the walls of wherever I've lived since then. My passion for fruits and vegetables is not limited to the kitchen or to the dining area. It's on my walls and it's on my clothing. And I've tended not to do so much fruit and vegetable jewelry because when my daughter was in middle school, she once looked at me and she said, "Okay, Mom, this fruit and vegetable jewelry thing just has to end," in the way that only a middle schooler can tell you what's wrong with yourself. But other than that, I cover my plate with fruits and vegetables. Now as I'm thinking about my, self-isolation here, I'm plotting my fruit and vegetable purchases, or having somebody purchase them for me and bring them to me. So Andrew, I am all in favor of the products that you promote, and the folks in your industry. I want to thank them just for growing and packing and sending food out to people. It's never been more necessary. And you and I both know that any list you read about how to take care of your immunity during this time starts with eat more fruits and vegetables.
Well, certainly true. Thank you so much, Dale. We really appreciate your time this morning, for sharing with our audience about the School Meals That Rock page, the work that you and school nutrition leaders across this country are doing to get kids access to fresh fruits and vegetables now more than ever, but also throughout the year once we get back to hopefully a normal situation soon. But thank you so much for what you're doing. And this is truly a collaborative effort. So, we look forward to other opportunities to continue working together in the months and years ahead. So thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank your members.